All right. What's happening, good people? My name is Kamal, and this is a quick. I'm gonna give you some details. So I don't want to say quick, but it'll be a good details in regards to how to use life insurance and disability insurance on your business. So I'll give you a little bit of background about me. I'm not going to go through uh, everything here, and of course, you can fast forward and kind of go through what you want, but I want this to just serve as information that'll help you make some good decisions in regards to making sure that your business is succession proof and that you have some continuity to kind of cover those what ifs that inevitably or invariably can happen in your business. And so my objective is to ensure that whatever challenges you face in your business, you have solutions for. All right. I'm not going to go through reading all this again. You can pause the video if you want to, but just suffice it to say that I've been doing this for quite a long time. I work with a number of business owners. I work with individuals as well, and there are some common threads that continues to happen with a lot of business owners, especially when you, as a business owner, get beyond your third or fourth year. Then you really start to look at legacy planning, and that's the goal. You want to start considering your business, aspects of your business 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now. And so, um, if you want to see your business survive, then you have to do some things to kind of make sure that it does that. All right. So we talk about a few principles here. Let's do this. Um, all right. So let's just talk about a couple of basics. We're going to talk about life insurance. We're going to talk about disability insurance. And there are, in general, when you're talking about life insurance, there are basically two different types of life insurance. What you'll hear most times is whole life, and I'll explain that in a second. Um, but, but let's talk about term insurance. So you have, let's call it temporary insurance or term insurance, and you have permanent insurance. The way that we typically know about term insurance is through that term, right? So for a set period of time, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, there's some companies that offer 40-year term. And the benefits of a term policy is that it's less expensive, it's less costly. You tend to be able to get a lot of money, a lot of coverage for not a lot of money. And so you'll see these that, especially in the business sense, you'll see these often in key person policies, key person disability, and key person life insurance, right? Then you have whole life or permanent insurance, and there are two different kinds of permanent insurance. When you're talking about, I think I'm in the way. I just realized that. So actually, let me change the screen up. So I can talk while I do that. Hopefully, I can make some changes while I do that. But permanent insurance kind of encompasses um, uh, whole life and index universal life insurance, and there are other kinds, but you start to get into a lot more risky insurance than just those two. With whole life, it is insured by the company. The company guaranteed the insurance company guarantees your cash value. So you have a portion of your premium dollars going into a bucket of money that grows in value, and that's called the cash value. All right. The bank or the insurance company guarantees that portion. So you'll see that the interest on that is typically low, somewhere around 1% to 4%. Right. You usually see it on the lower end. So from that, uh, you can start to build that cash value. And a lot of times that can be used, depending on how well it grows, that can be used for emergency purposes. Um, it can be used for retirement purposes, and we'll get into that in a minute. But especially in the business sense, you'll see a lot of businesses using that as an incentive for key people or C-suite. Those are important things that can help attract quality talent or high level talent to your business, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The other kind is the Index Universal Life, or IUL. You are guaranteeing that money. Well, it's not a guarantee. You are assuming the risk for an IUL, which means that um, there's potential for loss. But the beautiful thing about an Index Universal life policy is that there are kind of three characteristics, and this is kind of common throughout most carriers that offer Index Universal Life. I'm still talking. I'm still trying to get rid of this so you all can see this. But talking and doing stuff at the same time doesn't seem to be working too well. But again, there are three characteristics um, for Index Universal Life. All right, I was able to change it. I had to pause the video quickly. Can't talk and do stuff at the same time, walking, chewing gum. Anyway, so there are kind of three main characteristics of an Index Universal Life. One is that you have growth potential. Usually with an Index Universal Life, you're going to get more growth potential than you would in a whole life policy. So on average, when you take a 10 to 20 year average, you're going to see about 5%. There are going to be some years, depending on the type of policy and what the index is investing in. You'll see some years that have double-digit growth, but on average, when you take those growths and then the down years, on average, you're going to see 5 or 6% over a 10 to 20 year period. But so that's the growth potential, and then you also have downside protection, which means that as an example, if you have an IUL that invests a portion of those dollars that's invested in, say, the S&P 500. So when it tracks the S&P 500, we know often that the market takes a nosedive. So when the market takes a nosedive, the S&P 500 goes negative 20%, negative 10%. Your floor in your IUL is 0%. So that means you don't lose any money invariably, right? So the only time you would lose money in an IUL is if there's numbers of years consecutively of losses, right? Because you still have fees that are tied into an IUL. But again, just on regular investing, when you have down years, negative years, you will see a 0% floor, which means you don't make any money, but you also don't lose any money. All right, so that's the second one: upside potential, downside protection. The third principle of an IUL is that market reset. So once a year, based on where you are, that's going to be your new floor, right? So you won't ever go below a number or a level that you haven't been before, right? So you can only experience upward potential, upward growth, right? So you will see in the graph, you'll see kind of a stair step for most IUL growth, where if it's a flat year, it'll be flat. On the years that it's growing, you'll see it inclining, right? So IULs are really good for that. On the long-term disability side, it's income protection, right? So again, we're talking right now on a personal level, but you can do this on a business level as well. So it's income protection, taking if you have a challenge personally that's going to cause you to be out of work for a while, then you can have a policy that will cover the majority of your income. It won't cover everything, but it'll cover the majority of your income. Right? It'll be something that you can survive off of. Usually, it's about 60% of your income. And we'll talk about how this looks on a basis for your business as well. Right? So these are just kind of giving you some examples of what this looks like, how these things work. Right? So term insurance, permanent insurance, and long-term care. All right. So now let's get into some basic principles. All right. So when we're talking about key person disability, I think I got this right. Okay, yeah. When we're talking about key person disability, typically key person disability is for if you have a business owner or an executive in the company or a high value employee, and that person drives your business, or they're the brains behind your business, or they are good sales performing people within your business. If something happens to that person or those people in your business, then your business can take a nosedive. It could be impacted negatively. It could impact if you're publicly traded, it could impact your ability to secure your investors or to make your investors feel secure. If you have loans, it could cause your creditors to call your loans because they fear that the business will fold because this key person isn't available to do what they've been doing for the business. You can secure that by having a key person life insurance policy, right? Or key person disability. In this case, we're talking about key person life insurance. So if something were to happen to that key person, whether it be you as an owner or again, high value employee, then the life insurance will pay out to the company, right? Typically, life insurance pays out to the individual, but in this case, because the policy would be paid by the company would be the beneficiary, right? So you can pay that policy out to the company in the event of the loss of a key or valuable employee, all right? And so this again helps to secure creditors, helps to secure investors, make sure that payroll can continue, make sure that operations can continue on as well, right? So key person disability is a way to kind of cover the business in the event of a key person becoming disabled. Also, for purposes of hiring, key person life insurance or disability policy would be able to you would be able to hire and train a replacement, somebody that could potentially be a replacement for that valuable person. And if you need to recruit, there's resources and funds there to kind of recruit and retain high value people as well. All right. So when we get into talk about succession planning, my screen is here, so you see me looking to the side here. So when we get into talking about succession planning, you can use life insurance for that. And what you'll see typically, especially when you're talking about with partnerships, is a buy-sell agreement. And this is a legal contract, which means that this should be something that should be done with the lawyer present, preferably somebody that knows contract law, because they can help you establish all the principles, the things that are important for you and your business. And a good lawyer will cover with you all that ground. What would happen if I pass away? What would happen if I become sick for the long term? What would happen if I just decide that I don't want to do this anymore? I just want out of the business. A buy-sell agreement will spell all of that out. What would happen if I get a divorce, right, in my business, and I'm still in partnership in my business? Buy-sell agreements kind of cover that ground. I haven't heard this term, and I'm claiming this that since I hadn't heard this term before, I'm claiming that I created it until I hear otherwise. But a buy-sell agreement is a business owner's prenuptial agreement, right? It's the thing that you put into place ahead of time at the start of your business or early on in your business, so that when things are good, at the time when things are good, when things may not go as well, or when things go belly up, there's a plan in place to cover those what ifs of partner dying, partner becoming ill, long-term, things of that nature. And so in this example, you have two business partners that are in business. They have a $1 million valuation. The buy-sell agreement spells all of those things out. It spells out that 1 million valuation, but it also spells out, hey, if partner A passes away, partner B will receive the death benefit proceeds and then pay partner A's family, so that partner B can retain ownership of the business, right? And if you have multiple partners, each of those partners will have a fractional percentage of a life insurance policy, a business life insurance policy that will cover their untimely death, right? And that the intent is for the surviving business owners to retain ownership of the business to prevent the decedent's family from becoming partners in your business. Because typically the decedent's family or typically business partners, spouses, or family members don't know much about the business, right? The business owners want to retain ownership and control over that business. So the buy-sell agreement affords them the ability to be able to buy out the decedent's family so that they can retain the ownership over the business. All right. All right, so here's another plan. It's called an executive bonus plan. This is a plan for attracting and retaining high quality talent. I've seen this done in nonprofit spaces. I've also seen this done in for-profit spaces. And in essence, what this does, you see it a lot with executive C-suite, right? You get a high quality COO or a CEO, and the company wants to retain that person for some time. And what would typically happen is the company says, you know, we have this great package for you, but we'll also include this executive bonus program. And what this does is it will give you a life insurance policy. It'll be a permanent insurance policy. Typically, in my case, I've seen lots of index universal life or IULs. The company will pay for that policy, but the individual, the employee will own the policy. So it's in essence, it's a bonus to the employee to retain and attract that person. It's considered a golden handcuff. And so what a business will say is, you know, give me 10 years, give me 15 years, 12 years of solid work. We'll put a life insurance policy in place for you. And then after that 12 years, you'll have cash value. You can use that cash value to retire on, or to use it how you see fit, but this policy will be yours in full once after that 12-year, 10-year, 15-year period, right? Creating a golden handcuff, right? What I've seen is policies that even after 10 to 15 years, they have very robust, because these are being paid for by the company, they have very robust life insurance policies, so the death benefit is very large, and also the cash value is large, so that the individual, the owner, can use that either one. Well, they can use the cash value the way they want, so they can use it. And we'll talk about how people use cash value for retirement and really for emergencies or individual purposes, or sometimes even as income. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Right. But suffice it to say is that cash value is tax advantage, because if you take that money out of the cash value, it's considered a loan, and loans aren't taxable, right? So there's some ways that wealthy people have figured out how to use that cash value as income, right? So that they don't have to pay it back. So in essence, they just kind of draw down the policy until it gets to a point where they've used all the cash value, and they have other policies, so they can just let that policy collapse, right? All right. So let's talk about long-term disability. All right. So for long-term disability, again, it protects, and we're talking about key person, right? We're talking about key person disability. So it protects the business owner, or it protects the business from any kind of loss, right? So if the key person within the business, again, is long-term disabled, or they're not able to function properly in the business, then you can set up a key person policy to ensure that the business can meet payroll, that they can pay, continue to pay back the loan, again, and reinsure or assure their investors, if they're a publicly traded company, that this company is not going to fold, right? We put a plan into place that kind of covers these things in the event that somebody becomes ill, right? We see in most cases in insurance, the likelihood that you become ill is a lot higher than a person dying. So long-term disability is a good mechanism, a good tool to have in place, to cover expenses in the event that something happens to the business owner. All right. Talk really quickly about this. This is a 2024 Supreme Court case called Connolly versus the United States. In essence, the two business owners were brothers. The older brother, or the majority share owner brother, passed away, and that created a highly taxable estate. And the Supreme Court because of the way that it was seen, the IRS actually saw that that estate that was created wound up making that the life insurance that was paid out, it made that life insurance taxable, right? It became part of the business valuation. So the surviving brother fought it and took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with the IRS and the state, basically saying, hey, you know, that those life insurance proceeds are part of the business valuation. So if the business's valuation is 6 million and the policy is another 10 million, as an example, the business valuation now is $16 million because of that 6 million business valuation plus the $10 million life insurance policy. There are some ways that you can get around that. I'd advise you to talk to a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but there are some ways that you can get around that so that you don't have to have that valuation be part of your business asset, right? And you can avoid that, avoid creating that taxable challenge, so that you create an estate and you wind up having to pay all of your money and shut the business down, right? All right, so let's take a look at a few scenarios using all of these, or using a few of these, and how they actually work in your business. All right, so just going to read this really quickly. Lisa owns a successful tech startup with her co-founder James, who leads in the product development and sales. James is a critical person in the business, so they put a key person life insurance policy in place for him. And unfortunately, James passes away. Now, because they have this key person life insurance policy in place, they're able to stabilize business operations. They're able to meet payroll. The business can continue on without any major challenges. But just imagine that policy wasn't around. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading, but if that policy wasn't around, you would see that there are a lot of problems. And of course, most likely the business will go out of business because they can't do all the things that they're able to do because they have that policy in place. All right. So obviously, the lesson here is get key person insurance, especially key person life insurance, and we'll talk about key person disability as well. All right. In regards to key person disability, we got the Terrence, who's the co-founder. He's a founder and CEO of a manufacturing company, mid-sized manufacturing company. He's the driving force behind the business operations. All right. Keep doing this. All right. So, at 48, suffered a major stroke. He's not able to work, which basically creates an environment where loan obligations don't get covered. There's a challenge with payroll and other ongoing expenses. All right. So to solve that, he put a key person disability policy in place. That key person disability policy is income replacement for the business. Again, the company pays the policy, they pay the premiums, and the company is a beneficiary, right? You can do this with business owners, put a key person policy on business owners. You can also do this on C-suite. You can also do this on someone that doesn't have any stake in the business. Just need to get agreement from the person that you're looking to do the policy on. In my experience, what I've seen is, somebody that's a C-suite, maybe a CFO, COO, you put a key person disability policy or key person life insurance policy on them to cover the business behind. That individual is going to want the company to buy a policy for themselves. So you wind up typically doing two policies: one executive bonus and one, key person disability policy. Of course, the individual is like, yeah, if I die or if I become disabled, the company is going to be okay. But what about myself and my family? So you typically see that kind of one hand washing the other situation. But because he's the driving force, he's the owner of the business. We got income replacement, and then we also have a scenario where you can do a business overhead expense policy, that covers rent, it covers utilities, it covers some basic essentials for your business that that this kind of an added bonus, like stock, paying for if the company has stock, they stock shells, not stock like an asset or an investment, but they have inventory. I should say inventory. If they have inventory, if they have utilities, that business overhead expense policy kind of covers those things, right? And then obviously because they have these policies in place, then it helps continue with business operations with no major challenges. All right. Obviously, lesson is get key person disability, right? All right. So let's look at this case study for a young business owner, 36-year-old named Anita, um, who set up early on. She set up a whole life policy. So remember, we talked about whole life being conservative, right? So 1, 2, 3% growth, but that cash value is there, right? Growth. So you find a good carrier, that cash value can grow pretty strong. And let me just say that typically how well the cash value grows is a direct relationship with how large the death benefit is. If you have a smaller death benefit, 50,000, 100,000, it's going to take a longer time for the cash value in that policy to grow. But if you have or I guess I should say, it's depending on how large the policy is and your age. Those are two major factors that determine how well and how fast that cash value grows. So, if you're young, I've seen life insurance policies, whole life or permanent insurance policies on children or babies. And because they're babies, they have very low cost of insurance, which means most of the premium that's being invested, or that's most of the premium that's being paid is going into the cash value and very little into the cost of insurance, right? And so you can be older and have $1 million, $2 million, life insurance policy, and that cash value is going to grow pretty fast. So your age, health, and the size of the policy are going to impact how well that cash value grows. But let's say Anita has a decent size whole life policy. Anitra, I said Anita. I'm sorry. Anitra has a decent sized whole life policy. She set up that policy as part of her retirement plan. And remember, I said we're going to talk a little bit about how people, especially wealth-minded people, utilize whole life or permanent insurance for retirement planning or to avoid taxation. Right. So over 29 years, this policy accumulates and it grows tax-free. Now, as long as you don't exceed there's a test that the insurance companies and the IRS uses to determine if you're putting too much premium dollars into your life insurance policy. Wealthy people got wise. I guess I should say that the IRS got wise to what wealthy people were doing back in the 70s and 80s by front loading life insurance policies and then using those life insurance policies as investments. Let me make this very clear. A life insurance policy is not an investment. It is a life insurance policy. There are components of your policy that can grow so that you will see that growth and you can actualize that growth. But again, you want to talk to a CPA, make sure that you talk to someone who knows how investments work, because although you can use these as an investment, they are designed to be used for life insurance. But there are some savvy things that you can do to take that cash value and use it while you're still living, right? So age 65, she starts taking those cash value withdrawals and using it as retirement income. So let's imagine that Anitra had two policies, one for her family, one that she knew that if she passed away, that money would go to her family, right, as a death benefit. And then she had this policy that she knew early on that if I build the cash value in this, I can use that cash value at retirement and not be taxed on it. What typically happens with the cash value that you use, basically the company, let's assume it's $100,000 life insurance policy, and you take out 50,000, right? So the company, again, if you take it out as a loan, and that $100,000 is not paid back before you pass away, then they're just going to subtract that 50,000 from the death benefit and pay the remainder out. So pay the remaining $50,000 out as a death benefit. So in essence, they're going to take that 50,000 back. Now, we hear a lot of times. Now, typically when I do this, I make the statement. Well, I hear people saying often one or the other. They'll say, I don't like term insurance. Um, you know, I'm paying all that money, and then after 5 years, after 10 years, after 20 years, if I don't pass away, then I lose all that money. This is very true, right? In fact, you'll see with term insurance, um, that's one type of policy that we'll see lapses often because those policies, they because they're cheaper, they people tend to let those policies lapse because they can get another one, right? They can get another 15-year policy, they can get another 10-year policy, so on and so forth. So I hear people saying all the time, I don't like term insurance because, it's a waste of money if I don't die. Fair principle, right? But I also, on the other side, I hear people say whole life or permanent insurance is a ripoff. I'm paying money to build up this cash value, and then if I want to take that money out, it's going to be a loan. This is very true, right? However, if you consider it as a bank, like paying money to a bank, then you're kind of making deposits into this bank and that you can use that money how you see fit, right? And it's very much like your 401k or a home equity line of credit, right? So the home equity line of credit grows in your home, or the value of your home grows. You want to take a portion of it out. If you don't pay that HELOC back, then when you go to sell your house, they're going to take those proceeds back, right? So, in some ways, a HELOC, I'm sorry, a cash value policy is very much like, taking a loan out from a bank or a HELOC, right? Just consider it that way. But the beautiful thing about permanent policy is you get to build your own bank, right? This is money that you can control, and you don't have to qualify for it. You don't have to, apply for it. You can use it to pay for children's education. You can use it to cover emergencies. You can use it as a retirement asset, right? So what I typically say is do what works best for you. If you are a person that believes that permanent insurance is a ripoff, then let's go with a term. If you're a person that believes that term is a ripoff, then go with a permanent insurance policy. Now, permanent insurance is going to be a lot more costly than term, right? It's typically 3 to 4 times more costly than a term policy. So, either you're going to fork out a lot more money or you're going to get a lot less coverage. All right, so just bear that in mind. Again, the younger you are, with whether it be term or permanent insurance, the younger you are, the cheaper that coverage is going to be. So it's better to get the coverage when you're younger and healthy, right? But again, do what works best for you. I don't make a recommendation off without having a conversation one way or the other. It could be a term might not make sense for you. A permanent insurance policy might not make sense for you. So it really has to make sense with what your goals are and what your personal beliefs are as well. All right. So, again, Anitra uses the cash value in the policy. If there's any remaining, then it's going to be paid out to her family in the form of a death benefit, right? All right. Again, just think about structuring your life insurance policies. Life insurance and disability insurance, period, is the foundation of your financial practice, right? Of your financial plan. If you don't have insurance in place, then anything can come along and knock your plan off course and kind of really deter it and kill whatever you have planned from the beginning. So having a proper plan for your insurance is important. All right, so here's a last kind of case study, and we'll do this quickly because I don't want to belabor this time. Isaiah and Elijah, they're the father and son team. Uh, uh, Isaiah is the father and the majority owner in the business. Elijah is the minority owner in the business. Uh, Isaiah is married not to Elijah's mother, right? So Elijah, Isaiah's wife is Elijah's stepmother. I just want to make sure this is very clear because, of course, Elijah passes away. I'm sorry, Isaiah passes away. And because they did not have a plan in place when Isaiah passes away, who becomes the majority owner in the business now? And I'll do my collective weight to hear you say the stepmother, right? The stepmother becomes the owner in the business. And because we said earlier, most times your family aren't aware of how the business operates. They don't have the same interest. Typically, they don't have the same interest in the business as the owners do. So because this happens, um, stepmom now owns the business and she goes crazy. She makes a lot of changes in the business because Elijah is a minority owner. He has no say in the business because they didn't have a buy-sell agreement, right? They didn't have a structure in place. And because she makes a lot of sweeping changes, employees are upset, creditors are insecure, people jump ship, business explodes, business shuts down. All right. It's very valuable, very important for you and your business, even when you're a solopreneur or you're early in your business, to start considering your long-term plan for your business. Especially if you have a partner in your business or multiple partners in your business, you want to consider your long-term plan. Part of that long-term planning is what happens if I don't make it long-term? What happens if I pass away? Or what happens if my partner passes away? What happens if we become ill? Those long-term considerations are important, and you want to make those early in the business before, God forbid, anything drastic happens. Um, in the insurance space, we call this disaster management, right? All right, and so that's pretty much it. I'm going to leave you with a homework assignment, and I'm going to give you my information. I want you to research, take some time to consider how your business is structured and research what kind of policy would be right for you. What would be beneficial for you to take on? Would it be a key person disability policy? Would it be a key person life insurance? Or do you have a go-getter in your business that you want to incentivize to stick around? So an executive bonus would be a good structure for you and your business. Consider what type of insurance policy would help secure your business in the event of a disaster. Again, my name is Kamal. If you want to, you can scan the QR code here. This is my LinkedIn profile. I own Warrior Financial Services. I've been in business for over 15 years. I've been in the insurance space for over 15 years. I've been in business since 2019. But I love to educate. I have a background in education. I used to be a teacher. And if you have any questions, if you have anything that you want to ask me, you can definitely reach out to me. You can find Warrior Financial Services on Instagram and Facebook as well. Reach out. Let's talk. Have any questions? I love to answer questions. I love to teach. It's important that we get this information out so that people can make some better choices, especially make businesses a lot more sustainable. All right. So look forward to hearing from you soon. And this has been great. I enjoyed this. Hopefully you did as well. All right. Take care.